What is up, everybody? Today's Model Car Monday. I'm CJ, and you are watching Diecast Cars. So today, I am going to be responding to a comment I got from Superzilla101. And before I read it, I do want to stress, leave some comments below and tell me what type of diecast cars you'd like to see, some questions you'd like me to answer. But now, without further ado, here's the question he asked. He said, I have a question. What is the major difference between a $30 Maisto car and other more expensive brands? And that is what I hope to show you today. Now, before I answer that comment, I'm going to show you guys the two diecast cars that I'm going to be using in this episode. On the left side, we have a Mercedes E350 CDI, which is made by Maisto. And on the right side, we have our Mercedes C-Class, the luxury model, which is made by AutoArt. Now, when Superzilla101 actually wrote that comment, he emphasized the word major. He wrote it in all capitals because he's serious about it. Now, to be honest, there is no one major difference. There's not one thing that makes that C-Class so much better than the E-Class. But what AutoArt does is they take all these little tiny details and they put them on the inside and the outside, and it all adds up to be so much better than this one. And if I were reviewing these two cars side by side, I have to say it would be really hard to find an outcome because, yes, this one has much better detail than this one, but this one is retailed around $30 and can be found for about $12, and this one is retailed at about $120. But we're not doing that, so let's take a look around these two diecast cars. Now let's start with the front, and that, along with the rest of the outside of the car, will be a little bit hard to show you guys, some of the differences, because these are two different types of cars. Even though they're very similar, there are some differences. For example, on the E-Class, these lights down here look very unrealistic. But with that said, the ones on the C-Class don't look great either. Over by the grille is where you start to realize differences. For example, on the cheaper E-Class, you'll notice that the Mercedes badge that should be below this hood ornament is very small and just a sticker. Whereas on the C-Class, that little badge right there is bigger and printed right on the car. Also, I can't tell, but I'm pretty sure that these hood ornaments are both made of plastic. But there are some differences. On the one on the AutoArt, you'll notice that it's thinner and I think looks a little bit nicer. On the Maisto, the hood ornament is a little bit chunky and unproportional. With that said, it's really not that bad at all. Now let's take a look at the side of these diecast cars. And on the side of the cars, one of the first things you'll notice are these little stripes that go along. And I know what you guys are probably thinking right now. Wow, stripes. But they do show something. The one on the C-Class is made of real metal, and the one on the E-Class made by Maisto is just painted on. And when you look at them, this one looks much less realistic. It has a more dark grayer color and is not shiny, doesn't reflect, and that makes it look unrealistic. But the one on here is basically what they have on the real C-Class, so it's as realistic as you can get. Now, in one of my normal reviews, I'd probably be taking a look at the wheels right now. But these two diecast cars have different types of wheels. And there's really nothing to complain about either one, so let's move on. One thing you'll notice on the side of the cars is that on each one, they have these little signs. They're very small. The one on the E-Class says blue efficiency. That's because this diecast car is based on the diesel E-Class, and that's what they like to call their diesel models. That's what Mercedes likes to call them. And the one on the C-Class made by AutoArt says Elegance. That's because this diecast car is based on the C-Class Limousine Elegance model. Differences? You better believe it. The one on the AutoArt pops out and looks much nicer. But this one is just painted on. Now let's look at the back of these diecast cars. And one thing that's pretty hard to miss are the lights. You'll notice that the lights on the C-Class are very clear and you can see details below them. But the lights on the E-Class do not look as clear. You can see these little stubs right here that they glued them in with, and it doesn't look great. Next thing you'll notice are the exhausts, which on this one are hollowed out and look much more realistic. But the ones on here are a chromish color and very easy to see that they're quite fake looking. Then you look at the rear lights, which are little strips that go behind the passenger headrest in the very back of the car. The one on the E-Class is a sticker that looks terrible, but the one on the C-Class looks very good. To finish off looking at the back of these diecast cars, you'll notice that each license plate looks very realistic. And that the Mercedes logo on the E-Class does not look as nice as the one on the C-Class. Now we can move on and take a look at the trunks. When you look inside the trunk of the Maisto, you'll notice that it is just made out of plastic, but there are some upsides. When you look on the sides of the trunk, you'll notice that there are details that would be on the inside of the real E-Class's trunk. The trunk on the AutoArt, though, looks much nicer. It's filled with some felt and looks very realistic. Now, moving on. And what we're going to do is turn these cars around and take a look at the engines. The engines of diecast cars is where you can tell the difference between cheap diecast cars and expensive ones. Although, between the Maisto and the AutoArt, there are very few differences. You'll notice that the AutoArt looks a little bit more detailed, goes down a little bit further, and you can easily see pipes and other things that would be in the engine. But on the Maisto, you'll notice that it's all basically one color, except for this part right here, which is a silver, and the Mercedes-Benz logo, which is on both. I have to say, though, Maisto did do a very nice job. Now, we're going to look at the part of the diecast car where the AutoArt should theoretically pull far away from the Maisto, the interior. One fault with this diecast car, and basically all Maistos, is that only the front doors open. The back ones do not. On the AutoArt, all four doors open with ease. When you look on the inside of the AutoArt, you'll notice that everything is copied very nicely. The door is copied very nicely with realistic wood trim. You'll see this little opening right here, some speakers or a speaker. Then right here, a little handle. And on the center console, you'll notice the gear shifter along with some knobs right here and plenty of buttons. Then you'll see this little knob right here that controls the navigation, radio, and all that stuff. And the steering wheel on this diecast car looks much nicer than the one on the Maisto. The steering wheel on the Maisto is very chunky, whereas the one on the C-Class by AutoArt is very rounded and looks very nice. And I know what you might be thinking, yeah, but since these are two different types of cars, the steering wheels could just be different. Well, that's where you'd be wrong. I chose these two diecast cars because they have the same interior and some similar features on the exterior. Overall, the interior helps prove the point that I said at the beginning. The AutoArt is better because it has many little details that the E-Class does not have. On here, the wood looks kind of strange, and the seat belts are not as nice as the ones on here. But overall, it really isn't terrible. So in the end, you'll see that the Maisto is an amazing deal for something that retails for around $30 and can be found at places like Costco for only $12. And the C-Class is also a very good car and costs much more. But I wasn't here to compare this diecast car against this diecast car. I was here to show you guys the differences between an expensive diecast car and a cheap diecast car, the major differences. And as I said in the beginning, there isn't one major difference, but all the little things that the C-Class has and the E-Class doesn't add up, and it goes to show when you look at the diecast car. Well, if you don't already know, I make videos every Monday, so tune in next Monday, subscribe, leave some comments below, give this video a big thumbs up, and I hope to see you next week. Bye.